Kia ora, hello, I'm Philip Duncan. Thank you so much for joining us for our Wednesday weather update recorded on May the 14th. Let's get into the forecast. I have to kick off with the old green Hulk hand, seeing as I'm not on screen yet. But let's have a look and see what is happening. We've got high pressure all around New Zealand at the moment. That is the reason why there isn't really a lot going on today. Bit of a cold start with a few frosts through the South Island, and we're also seeing a few isolated showers around the North Island, most of those fairly light and short-lived. High pressure is the main feature, and big storms down here in the Southern Ocean are churning away, and there is a gap between the highs, and so there is going to be a bit of energy that escapes from the Southern Ocean between the high that's over the New Zealand area, Tasman area, and the next big high that is still yet to move through from south of Australia. So there's a bit of a weakness between these highs around the Australia region, which means all the stormy stuff in the Southern Ocean can find a weak spot to come through, and that is going to happen in the days ahead as, of course, all of these high pressure systems move eastwards. So let's get into the forecast a little more. Here is the 4-day rainfall. I've chosen 4 days because this one actually shows you which areas are really missing out on the wet weather over the days ahead. So if we start at the bottom of the key in the pink area, most of the eastern side of the South Island, from sort of northern Southland and the Catlins all the way up to the Marlborough Sounds, and then most of the North Island, perhaps a couple of showers coming in off Cook Strait, but otherwise basically most of the north is dry for the days ahead. So the real wet weather is over on the west coast, and even then it's not very much. In this blue shading, 20 to 50 millimetres for the most part. You have to really get down into the southwestland, really the Fiordland area, to see those rainfall totals getting up and over 100 millimetres in the days ahead. Fairly normal kind of autumn forecast. Jump through till tomorrow morning, Thursday. We've got another area of frosty weather again overnight tonight and into the morning. Some of those frosts might creep down to lower levels around northern Southland and Otago and Canterbury, but it's not looking like a major frost event. Just check your local forecast for more details. All right, let's get into the forecast. So Thursday, high pressure is still around, like a pair of sort of goggles over the top of the North Island. Mostly light winds, but there will be a couple of isolated little showers. This time of the year, pretty normal under high pressure to get some anticyclonic gloom. That's a bit of low cloud that comes off the sea, and that can produce a few light showers. So in summer, high pressure is usually dry and sunny. This time of the year, going into winter, can bring a bit of cloud and some showers. Not very much usually though. Westerly winds develop further down the country you go. They'll be windy through the Southern Alps, some exposed parts of the lower South Island, and of course they'll come through Cook Strait as a windy nor'wester. Most of the windy weather south of New Zealand. As we go to Friday, let's have a look at the big picture here. You can see the high pressure belt around New Zealand. There should be an H also over the Northland area, but when you zoom out sometimes it doesn't show that. So high pressure to the north of the country, pulling down the airflow that is up here next to Tonga and Rarotonga, and that is coming around as a nor'wester or a westerly flow into the South Island, which means going into Friday and into Saturday, we are not looking at overly cold weather, as some of this is subtropical. But look at the big storms down here, and I talked about the weakness between high pressure zones. So we've got this big high pressure zone around New Zealand. The next one is south of Western Australia over here. So in between the two, you can see a sinking zone of low pressure from Brisbane to Sydney, and at the same time in the Southern Ocean here, a big windy sou'wester is coming into Tasmania. That is the beginning of the cold front that is coming into New Zealand. Now, one other thing I get asked about almost every day, I should put a video up or a key up about this, the red line and the blue line. So they measure air thickness. So north of this red line, this is all the tropical, heavy, moisture-rich air that sits up in the tropics. South of the blue line, it's basically the opposite of that. It's the drier, much colder airflows that come out of Antarctica. In between the red line and the blue line, it's what we would call temperate. It's not too hot, it's not too cold. For the most part, it's normal weather. We don't really find it too excessive. So when the blue line comes northwards or when the red line drops southwards, that's when we've got a chance of cold weather or hot weather. And look what happens as we go into the weekend. The blue line here, showing this colder airflow coming through and into Antarctica. What does the 5,400 mean here? Basically, it means it's 5,400 meters above sea level, just sort of roughly speaking. So several kilometers up, that is showing you that this cold change isn't just on the surface of the planet, it is taking a big bite out of the atmosphere, and that's when we know it's a proper cold change. So there could be some snow around parts of Tasmania coming into the Alps of Australia. But on the New Zealand side, it is the opposite. We've got the high pressure zone out to the east. that is pulling in these tropical easterlies north of the country and then down over New Zealand as nor'westers or northerlies. And even if you're not getting the subtropical portion of that airflow, you're getting the Tasman Sea nor'wester. Either way, those are warmer conditions with rain developing on the west coast, strong to gale force nor'westers around the country, especially around central areas of New Zealand and Cook Strait, the top part of the Southern Alps. Severe gales are possible here. So there is the cold change sweeping into Tassie on Saturday, New Zealand on the other side, warmer. Now this means when you get the transition between warm and cold, you might be seeing some thunderstorms. Now it's not necessarily locked in. Something that's really worth noting, when you see the thunderstorm icon, it doesn't always mean that they are going to happen. It means that they are quite likely to. So see here on this map here, thunderstorms possible in the gold shading. Think of that as being like popcorn that you've only got on the element at half the heat or in the microwave at half the time. And so it might pop or it might not. And so let's animate this for you. You can see the timestamp down here. You'll see that front moving through, some severe thunderstorms out at sea, but once it comes inland, it's mostly in that gold thunderstorms possible risk. And that crosses most of the North Island on Sunday with that gold shading. So that just means that many of you might get a thunderstorm risk. But like I say, that analogy of only half cooking popcorn, hard to guess which part of that will be the few kernels that do actually pop. And so that is sometimes the trickiness of forecasting thunderstorms. Sometimes it just means you got the risk of a few downpours. So here is noon Sunday. You can see these sort of heavier blobs around the North Island, central areas here, and up around Auckland and Northland. These are the areas that could see some of those isolated thunderstorms. But if you don't get thunder, what is the next part of a thunderstorm without the thunder? It's the heavy downpour. So that is possible around parts of the North Island. Some heavy downpours, hit and miss. Some of you won't get much at all. That's quite normal with these fronts. Places like Auckland may only get 13 millimetres or so of rain. And then you've got the southerly change coming up behind it. That is likely at this stage to reach Wellington into the late afternoon, maybe around 4 p.m. But of course, it's still a few days out. So the timing could change by several hours between now and that moment. But at this stage, the southerly comes up the South Island across Sunday and comes into the North Island at the later part of the afternoon. So by Monday, southerlies coming in right up over the North Island. Still a couple of showers down around Wellington, Waited Upper, maybe Hawke's Bay. Won't be very much. Most of the wet weather is actually over on the west coast, down around Fiordland, and even that tapers off as you go further up the western side of the country. And these westerlies come back, coming out of Australia now. So yes, a bit colder on Monday in some places, but those westerlies return, and by Tuesday they are still blowing through as the next big high comes out of Australia. And so southerly flow on Tuesday of next week, the cold stuff pushed out over the Chathams, storms down here around Antarctica, 941 hectopascals. That's a big storm south of Western Australia. Small low here in the Great Australian Bight, but it's surrounded, bookended by these big high pressure systems. So high pressure out around Madagascar, high pressure around Western Australia, southeastern Australia, the Tasman Sea, and south of Polynesia. So that is a big belt of high pressure moving through, which means despite the front coming in this weekend, chance of a few thundery falls, there's not a lot really happening at the moment. Autumn is still warmer than average by 1 or 2 degrees around New Zealand, and rainfall is still likely to be below average in some places. But at the moment, the next 7 days ahead, many areas have either normal to perhaps a little bit above normal rainfall if you live in the western side. Eastern areas likely to be below normal rainfall. That's all from me for today. I'll be back again tomorrow, Thursday, with your next outlook.